Broadcasting from our studio in Boston, Solutions Review is proud to present Qrvey in the Solutions Spotlight, an inside look at enterprise technologies.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to this Solutions Spotlight featuring Qrvey, and focused on the transformative power of embedded analytics. Embedded analytics is shaking up the business intelligence landscape, going far beyond old-school static dashboards. So today, we will explore how embedding customizable analytics tools into your applications will deliver powerful insights into your workflow. Qrvey is an embedded analytics layer for SaaS companies. It empowers these companies to create more valuable customer experiences by enabling users to build and share custom analytics within their SaaS applications. As an added bonus, you're going to hear from a Qrvey customer on their need for a solution that went above and beyond simple dashboards. And joining us to walk you through the Qrvey solution is Brian Dreyer, Head of Product Marketing. Brian, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me today.
This is a great topic for us. I have to say that it's really been the last couple of years that analytics and really data, all of our data categories are kind of blowing up, and it's just a huge topic. Everybody's interested in it. We have a lot of site traffic audience that is gravitating toward this topic in particular. So I'm glad you're here, and you also brought a special guest, which I alluded to in our intro. Tell us a little bit about who you brought with you.
Yeah, I brought her name's Erin from a company called Resolver. And, a lot of what we want to talk about is, a lot of why SaaS companies are going down this path of, the old build versus buy, on why buying, it just tends to be a better route. So we want to talk about kind of, what led down this path and how we got to those, some of those decisions.
Well, welcome, Erin. It's always a pleasure to have a customer on these types of programs. So we're going to bring you back in actually after Brian has done a little bit more of a Qrvey overview. Just to set everybody's expectations, Brian's going to do a presentation, and you all are going to get a chance to submit questions if you have any. I will take them in here at Solutions Review, and we'll save them for the end. So by all means, please submit them, and we'll ask Brian everything, and Erin, if you have any for her. Otherwise, Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you take it from here. And then I'll connect back up with you after you and Erin have had a chance to go through her experience.
Great. I'll see you in a bit.
You bet.
So we'll get right into this today. So again, Brian Dreyer with Qrvey here, and Erin, who's a product manager with Resolver. So we're going to cover some different topics about, kind of this journey from static dashboards to a more comprehensive analytics product directly within SaaS applications. So we'll kind of cover these three topics over the course of the next 40 or so minutes. So one of the most common places to start, right, these dashboards, right? We've heard about dashboards for 20 years. Why are we still talking about dashboards? But, when we frame this in the context of SaaS applications, right, we're talking about SaaS applications that have a need for a better analytics product. You typically find yourself a little bit in this sort of a situation. I just think this is always a great meme to start it off here, right? Your customers are looking for you to tell them what to do with data. They want your expertise. And you're kind of like, well, we have some charts. Isn't that good enough? And the reality of it is, it's really not. Your dashboards tend to frustrate your users for a number of reasons. Sometimes they lack the interactivity that they need. Sometimes they're just not customizable enough. Sometimes they just lack the integrations. They might be slow. And this comes out in a variety of ways, because you're going to see this in the form of feature requests that you just can't seem to dig out from under, as well as sometimes customer churn, right? And those are the things we really want to avoid. One of the things I always like to tell other product managers is that every SaaS product is an analytics product. Every SaaS product is an analytics product, because if your product generates data, you have a responsibility to help your customers not just analyze it, but use it in an actionable way. Analytics is how customers justify their investment in your product. If they don't have reports and dashboards and analytics to really show that your SaaS product is generating value for the company, you're going to lose that next renewal. These customers will churn. And no matter what your industry is, data and analytics is really how they're going to show that your product generated an ROI for that company. And I like this stat from Gartner, right? So they say 80% of enterprise application vendors compete on the sophistication of analytics, right? So they've gone out and they've done surveys to actually quantify that that companies will choose vendors on the back of how good their analytics are. So there is actual data out here to support that, right? So that's all great and good. So now what? So what is embedded analytics? Let's just do a quick little level set, right? We're talking about integrating third-party business intelligence style analytics into your software. Why? Because it enables end users really to visualize the data that they're generating within your application, and it lets them customize it to their individual business needs. So there's typically a journey of where embedded analytics fits in. A lot of times people start with these charting libraries. That's great for developers. They can kind of plug in a SQL query and they can kind of get something on the front end. Then you get a more sophisticated data visualization layer, but at the end, it's still just a front end layer and it just doesn't really handle the data side of things. Some people go down this path of trying these legacy BI platforms, because a lot of times they'll offer some, iframed embeds. You can put some dashboards in there and people will try that. But what they really end up doing is spending a ton of time on development to integrate that into a multi-tenant application. So this is where embedded analytics really is about SaaS products. And we'll talk about what goes into that. But there is a legit difference, especially because you've got a different user base. And some of this comes back to how these things are sold, right? Embedded analytics is for a multi-tenant solution, right? So you have different security controls as opposed to a BI system, which is selling to internal groups, right? There's a fundamental difference with how they work. And you've got a lot of requirements for embedded analytics here. So self-service, personalization, collaboration cannot leave security, right? Security is how, it's not just multi-tenancy, it's also user personalization, row-level security. And the last one really is around automation, right? How do you put that data into action? So there's a lot of components to what makes a good embedded analytics layer, right? So if I take these sort of 5 components down, so self-service, right? What people want is to edit dashboards. They want to build some new ones. They want to use some templates. And, you can't just have every tenant get the same dashboard and expect people to get what they want. Personalization. What are we talking about, right? Which data do you want to report on? Not every customer has the same data model, and not every customer is going to want to choose the same data in every report, right? So you've got some tenant-specific templates. Don't forget about the mobile side of things. I mean, you probably invest a lot in making sure your SaaS application is mobile ready, right? And then things like scheduling, those are how you deliver it to people at different points in their workflow. So consistent data models across tenants really break down, right? When your analytics application forces you into that. Kind of the next one, right? People want to collaborate. They want to edit things as teams. Sometimes they have internal and external sharing. So how do we manage controls with what people want to do there? Scheduling and workflows is really how teams can collaborate and they're looking at data at a consistent schedule, right? So, and that doesn't really kind of work too well with, a lot of the user-based licenses where everyone needs a paid account to log in. That really doesn't scale in a SaaS environment. When we talk about security, right? It's not just who has a login and who doesn't. This is customizing the data that people can see. Maybe it's a full data set. Maybe it's a partial data set, right? Maybe it's just certain data within a certain table that only certain users can see. Maybe it's access to dashboards, right? Maybe you have some administrative level dashboards versus some lower level dashboards. But that native multi-tenancy is what really ties this together. So when you have to create individual data warehouses for your different groups or different tables, or really do a lot of extra work to segregate it, it really starts to break down. And then lastly, on that automation side, right? How do you put data into action? If all you're doing is emailing PDFs, it's not really automation, right? We're looking at, more complicated threshold-based alerts. If you can write data back to your data set, you can then, trigger new actions. But sometimes the action doesn't always happen in your system, which is why APIs and webhooks are really important here. Because, sometimes a data trigger will actually trigger a workflow in a third-party system. So you want to be able to tie systems together without writing all that middleware yourself. So where you get into trouble, right? Some of your common points of failure, data quality, right? When you're doing this all yourself, you're going to be responsible for that. Data security. You don't really want to have to build your own security model. This is really where companies get into trouble when they try to build this whole multi-tenant layer themselves. That just leaves you, really exposed to to gaps in that. Data silos, right? When you can't tie data together, that becomes a bit of a bottleneck, and it leads to a lot of people asking you for better download features, because if they can't do it in your SaaS application, they're going to do it somewhere else. And then relevance, right? You're also then responsible for keeping it up to date, relevant, right? I mean, there should always be some kind of data cleansing processes and procedures, but again, do you want to build this all yourself is really one of the biggest challenges that SaaS companies have to face when they go down this road. So kind of with that backdrop, right, of, okay, SaaS applications are different. They're not just internal user groups. How does Qrvey actually help address that? So who are we? Our goal is to be that embedded analytics layer for SaaS companies. We want to take a lot of the components that you would build yourself, and for you to build ETL, warehouse, a preparation layer, and then front-end software. This is years of development, right? And a lot of SaaS companies, they think they can shortchange this, but the reality of it is, this is a complicated set of software, tools, processes, and Qrvey aims to simplify that for you by providing it in a unique solution. So the three ways we tend to do this differently, right? So one, we're all in on the cloud here. So we built our solution on serverless technology, which is, really about the only way to really give you both scalability and cost efficiency in a cloud environment, right? So that was, kind of choice number one. Number two, deployable to unlimited environments. You're a SaaS company, you have a software development process, and it's important for your solution to fit inside that software development process. So that means you have staging environments, you have QA environments, you have testing, pre-production environments that all need to have the same exact software throughout, so that your QA team can really do their jobs. And then, it gives you that on-demand scaling. So that's where that serverless technology really gives you a leg up on making sure that you're only using cloud infrastructure that is required of your application. So number two is freedom to design experiences. So with native multi-tenancy, that really lets you tailor different pages to different tenants. So sometimes that can be useful for rolling this out, in stages over time. Sometimes this can be, when you add this to user tiers, or it's a premium add-on, right? So some tenants will have it and some won't. So that end user personalization means you can tailor everything on single pages, from which data that they can see, different filters that they can see, all the way down to individual charts and dashboards. But two, everything is embeddable. So what we mean by that is it's not just, whole page dashboards. You can tailor this so that you can mix and match, widgets from our system and widgets from yours. And I'll demonstrate that as well. So you can see what that really actually looks like in practice. And then you need control where it matters most, right? So deploying to your cloud means you get the ultimate control and security. So this is going to inherit your security policies that you already have in place. So this is a really important part of why we want it to be part of your cloud and not a third-party cloud where you would send data to. So this lets you keep it in place. It's the best way of doing data security. And then, with those granular multi-tenant controls, you can really tailor that as well to exactly what it needs to be. So we're not forcing any specific models. Your system always remains the system of record, and you simply pass in, security when you need it. So we really took a holistic approach and looked at where SaaS companies need a lot of controls there. So how does this look in practice? I'm going to flip over to a demo here, and we'll actually kind of go through that with that backdrop, and we'll talk about this as we're going along. So here's a demonstration I've prepared here. So this is a SaaS application, and right off the bat, this application, along with many applications, you tend to have a dashboard when people log in. So this is what I was talking about, designing experiences. So this page is a mix of Qrvey widgets and widgets that belong to the application. We didn't want to have to tie you into just, you just do a dashboard and that's it. If you wanted to offer different text blocks or different ways of showing data, you got a lot of choices here by giving you different options. So here I'm clicking on an individual chart filter, right? So if you want to offer drill-ins right there from these individual widgets, it's a very simple and easy thing to add to any chart. You know, as I'm scrolling through here, looking at the different tool tips, I'm giving people data right when they log in that might be the most relevant to everyone. But then, you know, next screens will kind of show how we tailor some of that through there as well. But you can see I've mixed and matched widgets on this particular screen. So going over to another dashboard. So this dashboard, I'll spend a little more time on this one. So this dashboard here has a fully embedded dashboard. So these are not individual widgets. This is actually a full dashboard, but I've tailored the look and feel to fit inside my application. So we're going to walk through some of the features that, you know, we offer with our out-of-the-box solution that you can then offer to some of your SaaS users as well. So as we're scrolling down, you can see I've kind of mixed and matched layouts. I've got a responsive grid. So this will, you know, kind of shift and move around depending on the screen size here. Looking at this first widget, obviously I'm scrolling over, you can see I'm mixing both a cumulative sum, which is the line chart, as well as, you know, individual date data. So you've got different ways of presenting the same data on the same chart. You see the dual y-axis there as well. A lot of companies like to do that so you can kind of show relative performance between two different metrics. You've got things like reference lines. If you have annual goals that you're working towards, you can highlight that pretty easily. And that stuff can be customized on the fly. You know, I've put this into my dashboards, but this might be different for different tenants, and we've got different ways of customizing that as well. So you can see a lot of the different charts. That's a cumulative number when you're working towards a goal. Even though you're getting monthly numbers, it's still a running total. So which is a slightly different way, means the user doesn't have to do the math on their head on the fly. Doing things like small multiples right here, when you want to break down, you know, categories of data using the same type of visualization, which is why you see four bar charts. They look very similar, but it's actually one widget using kind of a small multiples method to break down. In this case, I'm looking at payment methods over different treatment types. And then we can't forget tables. Tables, you know, they may be one of those little things that people sometimes underlook, but I tell you, when we talk to customers, tables are oftentimes one of the most important visualizations that we walk through with them. So you got full control over the look and feel. We've got multi-column sorting natively built in that you can turn on or turn off, depending on what you'd like. But again, I've tailored that look and feel to my application there as well. So that's kind of like an overview of, you know, one dashboard here. So we've got a couple of filter options in here as well. So the first thing I'll show you is if you want to see the data behind any given chart, you can very quickly click on that link that says go see the data table. This will give you the raw data behind any given chart that you're looking at, which is always a great way to, you know, just surface a little bit more behind individual widgets. You can select the columns. You can do some filtering from in there as well. So you got a few more actions. What I'll also show you is you can also do different types of filtering. So that first one, I've only filtered that one individual widget. So the only thing I've done there is change that one monthly visits just to isolate that September number. So nothing else has changed at this point. You'll notice all the metrics have stayed the same. All the breakdowns are the same. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that filter from this individual panel. So we have panel, global, and dashboard filters. And then I'll go over to another chart and we'll kind of demonstrate how in the same dashboard, I can then configure that particular widget to filter the entire chart. So now you'll see all of my data has changed based on that one segment I've selected from that pie chart. So these are the types of customizations you can start to offer. These are the features that a lot of our customers like to see because we know that people tend to look at data, you know, differently. People a lot of times just have different flavors. They have different process. They think about things differently. So that is not a panel filter this time. So that becomes more of a dashboard filter. So I'll go ahead and remove that next. And we'll get that off there. Yep. So now you'll see I've got a dashboard filter up top. We'll get that. We'll get that in there. And then we'll take that off and that will go back and reset the whole dashboard. So mixed a bunch of visualization types on here, whether it's, you know, your typical bars, pies, but we have things like heat maps and maps as well. You can always do more complex filtering on an individual, widget. So these are like the different time frames. If I wanted to, take anything off from there, I could. If I just wanted to do that on the individual widget, we can do that there as well. So you'll see a handful of options down there too. So when we talk about customizations, so that was, one way of doing customization. I kind of show it this way too. Like this is roughly the same dashboard, but this is a dark mode. If you have an application that has a fully kind of dark background and you've embraced this dark theme, this is just another way of looking at it. So to show you that you can customize this with both some CSS overrides, on the embed. We do support theming as well. So when you really do want to take this, tailor it, make it look like your application as much as possible, you have very easy tools to do that. And you'll notice nowhere on there does it say powered by Qrvey. This is a fully white labeled solution. So you won't see our brand anywhere on any of these embeds. So this is meant to be your application, meant to look like your application. Now you see I've got 3 buttons in this top right corner, a view, edit, and a create button. So when we talked about, you want to be able to offer more to people, not just a static dashboard. So you can do, again, all of this with embedded widgets. So this is all still within a SaaS application. If this user who's logged in has permission to edit, you can offer them an edit button of your own. Those buttons belong to the SaaS application, not ours. But from here, you get our dashboard builder. So you can add charts and images, text, and buttons on this. So it doesn't just have to be charts and widgets. You can actually add some context. If you want to support that more of a story type format, you can do that too. From there, you get the full editor. And you can do this with individual charts as well as full dashboard editing too. So from here, this is where you can, do something simple like I'll just change the sorting on this one so you can see something is visibly different. But you get all the full chart controls there as well. It's doing an asynchronous save in the background. So I hit view, kind of went back to that first step. The next phase, what we'll click on is the create button. So that was an edit of something that existed. Now you have a full create if you want to give a blank canvas and start from scratch. So I've got over here on the right-hand side, I actually have charts that I've already pre-built. So users with the right permission set could actually use something that has been pre-built, and plenty of people do it that way, right? Or they want to build from scratch, and that can go both ways. So the same chart editor that you saw as part of the edit function is also the same one here for building from brand new. So you've got all my different categories of data right there. It's a simple drag and drop interface where people can drag to either the X or the Y axis, or they can drag right up to the categories and values procedures there too. I've got full editors over there. If I want to change, the orientation of my chart, maybe I don't want those data labels in there. And you can see I've got a few ways of customizing it. I mean, you can take a lot of this stuff out of the box, but for some more advanced users who like things in a certain way, you've got some choices of what you can offer people there. So all the way from looking at different chart types as well, switching over to a multi-series chart. If I've got 2 different charts there, two different metrics, I can put that second one on another Y-axis, change the line. And that very quickly gets you to, being able to display 2 different metrics on one chart, give it a little contrast with a darker color, and you're on your way. So from here, you get we have a lot of customization options built into this, but a lot of times, the out of the boxes are ready to go. You can filter just one chart. So it always uses a filter right off the bat. Let's just say I want to only look at data from this year. That's a very simple way of doing it right here at the time of build. So this won't get changed later on. So if you really want to lock it into that, you can do it. We also support custom formulas as well as custom groups and custom buckets. I'm not going to demo those today, but we do have support for that as well. Formula is obviously something more for advanced users. But now I've got a second chart. I can line it up, move it around my responsive grid. And you've started to build a new dashboard. And again, you might have publishing workflows. Maybe this has to go through somebody before it actually is a live dashboard. You can give people their own kind of my dashboard areas too. So you got a lot of choices with how you publish it. Flipping over to a full page table. We talked about tables as part of a dashboard, but this is also another area where a lot of times companies will stop building their own, tables and offer some more complex ones. So what I've done in that top right-hand corner is I've built a filter into the SaaS application. So that's not a filter that's native to Qrvey, but what it demonstrates is you can have your own kind of look and feel. If you want to do complex filtering, you can do that within your application. You also get the multi-column sort, so you can offer that as well in there at the same time. So you can really start to modify, change these depending on how you want to do that. So if you notice, the visit ID has a unique number. So what I'm going to do here is actually jump to a transaction that's linked to it. So we can link charts together. We can also do like a hyperlink type chart. So what I did was pass that visit ID as a URL parameter, and it took me to a screen where I was able to jump right to some kind of a transaction value. So the last part I'll show you is automation. So automation is another embeddable widget here, and I kind of embedded the whole experience just to do more of a demonstration on kind of the whole widget. A lot of times people do their own lists with our APIs, but for the sake of the demo, we embedded the whole thing. So to show you that you can have multiple automations for any given user and account. But again, these are more nested automations where you can do if-then statements, where if you do need to have custom conditions and nested conditions, you've got your different ways of sending it out: email, SMS, directly to Slack. And this has been a little more of what we kind of talked about earlier. So you've got different data actions around searching, updating, inserting records. So automation can be pretty complex from there. So kind of just tying it all back here. So a lot of what we do at Qrvey really is about that experience. So that's kind of a quick walkthrough. It's about 12 minutes of what we offer here. There's a whole data management layer to this that I'm not going to show today, that we can show at another time. But this hopefully gives you a sense on the types of user experiences that you can build within a SaaS application using Qrvey's embedded analytics. Enough about Qrvey. Let's talk to Erin. So we're going to bring Erin in here now that I've kind of set the stage, walked through a little bit about Qrvey. And it's always sometimes better when you hear it from somebody else. So as much as I'm sure you love hearing vendors talk, sometimes it's better to hear other people talk here. So we've got 5 questions with Erin. I'll let Erin kind of introduce herself and her company, and then we'll get right into the first one.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm a product manager here at Resolver. Resolver is a highly configurable risk management and corporate security software. And we're on a mission to empower our users with risk intelligence to help them drive proactive strategies and deliver value to their companies. Our recently launched embedded dashboard feature is critical to that plan.
As a product marketing lead, I love that you were on point with that company message. But let's kind of talk about this, right? So you went down a path, right? You had to make a decision at some point that it was either going to buy something or maybe you continue building. So what were some of the factors that kind of played into this decision?
The most important driving factor was focusing on what we do best. We have a lot of deep expertise in the corporate security, compliance, and risk management space. And we really wanted to partner with a vendor who could help us deliver sophisticated business intelligence at scale, with the added benefit of decreasing time to market. We were able to partner with you to develop like a far more sophisticated embedded dashboard offering than we could have built ourselves in the time that we spent embedding it.
Yeah, that time to market is a common one. We hear a lot of people think it's shorter to build than to integrate, but that usually doesn't pay off in the long run. So yeah, we definitely heard that one a lot. So question number 2 here. So looking at some of the use cases, where did you find that really offering that embedded analytics, that more advanced experience had some higher impact?
Well, the important thing to recognize about our customers is they are on teams typically viewed as cost centers for their business. Internal audit, security, loss prevention, threat detection, right? But we know that they bring a lot of value to the table, and we wanted them to help convey those powerful messages to their own stakeholders And instead of just managing the risks, how can we proactively spot emerging trends and develop strategies to mitigate them? And that's something we're really excited about dashboards for.
That's great. Yeah. Trend spotting is always an interesting one because that usually means something different to different customers within an application. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one for sure. Now, these are obviously never easy decisions here. So the technical considerations are always a big part of any evaluation. What were you guys kind of looking for to really make sure that you were offering that better user experience?
It's a good question. Going into this journey, one of our biggest challenges is our data model. We have a highly flexible data model that can change on a dime, depending on what our customers need. So we needed to partner with a vendor who could support changing data models and custom data models per tenant. Another consideration was security. Working in this corporate security space, it's highly regulated, and working with globally distributed teams, we need to be compliant with the most stringent requirements. Because we were able to deploy Qrvey within our AWS environment, we were able to deliver on those promises and guarantees we have to our customers. And then just building on that a little bit, our early research indicated that customers would lose trust if they felt they were leaving our platform or engaging with a third-party vendor, especially with this kind of highly sensitive data. Because we were able to offer that really frictionless embedded experience, the dashboard builder and dashboards themselves, they look and feel like our product. And that's because of a lot of the white labeling features Qrvey offers.
Yeah, you really hit on an important theme there, and I'll highlight it, is that trust theme, right? I mean, I know you guys really have that, but I mean, we see this in a lot of industries, especially when you get into like healthcare, financial, cyber, and risk for sure. But we play in a lot of those industries that really, where trust really is an important one. That data model consideration is a unique one for sure. And I know you and I have talked about what goes into making that work on your side there too. But, that's one of those little things that don't often come up in trials. When we work with customers, they kind of overlook how important the data side is. They think their data is ready, but a lot of times they're not. So it's always interesting to hear that, especially it's good to know when going into it, it's a lot cleaner. But you'd be surprised at how many people start trials and evaluations not understanding the state of which their data is actually in and what they're going to need it to do in the future. So I'm highlighting that one for anybody else that's thinking of going down this road. That's a really important consideration. It's not just the charts and dashboards, but where your data lives and how it sits and what you're going to need it to do is a pretty important side of that too. So here we go. Number 4. This is where you get to, put on your expert badge. So what kind of advice would you give to other companies that are maybe thinking about embedded analytics, thinking that, okay, it's time to stop building this ourselves? Any pitfalls that maybe you guys learned along the way, but just, you could put your expert badge on, and what kind of advice would you give to other people?
My first piece of advice would be to take a look at your data warehouse. Make sure that you're storing your data in a way that's highly usable for your dashboards, easy to maintain, and in the right format. Second tip, when you're entering proof of concept with any vendor, make sure you have a really strong rubric documented that all your stakeholders can agree on. This came in really handy for me when we had kind of not move forward with a vendor. I had some really great documentation to provide them and kind of be that great customer. And then third consideration, and a challenging one, how are you going to maintain your data? How are you going to keep it in sync? And how are you going to delete objects that shouldn't be included anymore? And how are you going to make sure this is performant? So a good plan going into the evaluation is my overall goal.
Yeah. It's we say this to other people. You didn't quite. It wasn't like how good is your bar chart? How good is your pie chart? No, this data side is really important, and this is, to be fair, one of the reasons that Qrvey from the very beginning has always included a data layer. Our founders have been in the analytics industry for a while, and I think they have no shortage of direct experience. Like when data is not ready and doesn't perform, it doesn't really matter how good the front end is, right? If there's no data, the user experience just falls down. So I think that's great to hear. And hopefully somebody took some notes on that one. And then lastly, this is kind of, we get to look into our crystal ball here. Any trends in the space that really get you excited, things you're looking forward to. Look into your crystal ball, put on your wizard hat. If you're a Harry Potter fan.
Would it even be a conversation about SaaS products if I didn't say artificial intelligence?
Not in 2023.
So definitely AI, but like one challenge we've come across is our customers are not necessarily data scientists. So business intelligence has quite the learning curve, and that's one place I think AI could really boost us. How can you get the perfect data set on your first try instead of this trial and error process that they go through today? Mm-hmm. And I also want to say cloud infrastructure. There's some really exciting emerging technologies that make data storage and maintenance way more efficient and way more powerful and scalable. So those are two areas that I'll be looking into in the coming months.
Yeah, AI is a big one. I think we're getting ready to launch a beta, kind of along the ChatGPT, OpenAI lines there too, to really help with some of that synthesis, right? I mean, they can just spot those trends a little bit faster. It's an exciting, interesting time. I mean, I know the security side of things is going to really probably be first and foremost of making sure that data always stays secure. But you're right. I mean, I think AI really is the biggest opportunity in the space that the analytics industry has seen in a while. I mean, machine learning's been around for a while, but I think, democratizing AI is a pretty exciting one. So I know we're looking forward to it as well on the Qrvey side of things. So cool. That kind of brings me to the end of that Q&A. That was a great little segment there, Erin. I appreciate you joining me on that one.
My pleasure.
I think we've got Doug who's jumping back in here.
There
we go.
I'm here. And I actually want to, while we have Erin here handy, I love the fact that you brought a customer to the show. And I'm a simple man and not technical. I'm the host, but I host a lot of these, and I see a lot of solutions, and I've seen a lot of trends. But I'm curious with regard to Brian's presentation, which I thought was extremely well done and also extremely good looking, the whole presentation layer of it. I want to talk a little bit about that because in your profile on LinkedIn, Erin, you talk about how you are a fan of great design. I'm curious how much, when you were picking a solution, it mattered how it was going to look to the end user.
It was essential. Our dashboards are such an important part of the customer's journey and helping them really influence strategy at their companies, that we knew that we needed to deliver a highly polished, professional looking, kind of boardroom ready dashboard. So it was one of our number one criterias.
Well, and along those lines, I'm curious to get both of your opinion. Do you see that affecting the way the end user interacts with the solution, where they're, not only can they trust the data, but they can kind of interpret it a little more easily because it's graphically presented?
Yeah. So I think you get a couple ways to kind of answer that question there, right? And, when you're dealing with multi-tenant SaaS applications, it's never one size fits all. And I think that really is kind of highlighting what Erin's sort of, getting at with a number of her answers there. She really highlighted the fact that they've got a different data model for different customers and different tenants, right? That has to translate into a front end user experience. So, the one size fits all static dashboards really have a challenge with that requirement, because the way you filter and slice your data could be different than your colleague, which can be different than a colleague number 3. That might all be in the same tenant. So the front end really has to have the different options to either, support it out of the box, right? So that means it can map to user permissions and controls. So when the page just loads, it loads with what that user is eligible to see, as well as taking it a step further and say, okay, this is a good start, but I want to take it down a different lane. And that lane's only going to be for me. I don't know if Erin, you wanted to add anything to that one there, but that customization, we see it in multi-tenant applications.
Yeah, it's very important. And the only thing I would add on is the design itself of the dashboard is just as important as the UI. So we've invested a lot of time in training and enablement on our end.
Can you talk a little bit about the elements of that team that you kind of joined with, and kind of how the product came together, both between companies? I mean, what was the account management experience, that sort of thing?
Oh my gosh. Qrvey's been amazing. We have a full team on their end that we have almost daily conversations with, at least during the development phase. And a lot of, our development teams are very closely in touch and working together. So it truly is a partnership.
And it needs to be, right? Because while we're offering a solution that has plenty of out of the box, every SaaS application is different. I mean, how, Erin and Resolver, how they architected their system is going to look different than our other customers, from databases to middleware to even API structure. So, it's important for us to invest in that, because that's what it takes to make our customers successful.
Yeah. So Brian, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure.
That initial process as you're talking to a brand new prospect and trying to understand their needs and how you're going to deliver that sort of integration for them.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of I'll call them evaluation criteria, but a lot of the things we're looking at here, one, so obviously is on the data side first. So we have our own data layer, which can support the SQLs and the NoSQLs of the world. So, right. But it kind of starts with, where's it coming from? Then a lot of times you're looking at what's been done already. So I alluded to this earlier, is that not every data warehouse or not every data lake is created equal. So how ready is it to kind of ingest into our system, or into what we provide into our system? There's a lot of discussion on that point, to be frank. And, that's usually where we keep technical experts on hand to really help with that mapping. We come across customers that are doing some very sophisticated and, complicated manipulations of data on their side. Sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it's just what they had to do. So there's kind of this best practices. We try to be, a partner, a consultant, a mentor to them too, because some are really ready and some just need more help than others. So we do things like every trial prospect gets a dedicated Slack channel, right, with us. So we give people direct access. It's not support tickets. We give people direct access to Slack. We're with them the whole step of the way on the trial process. And we make sure that they do a legit, trial is not the right word, but it needs to mimic what it would look like in their environment. We don't want to just rush people through this kind of quick, here's our dashboard builder, that looks good. No, we want them to hook it to their data. We want them to hook it to their user permissions. We want them to do it right, because we want people to be successful. I mean, if we're not the right fit, that's fine. We're not the right fit. But if they rush through that stage, everyone will look like the right fit, and chances are the one they choose will not be. So we're pretty hands-on through that whole process. So we get dedicated Slack channels, success managers, access to our development team if that's what it requires.
I'm curious about definitions. because we do see a lot of things here and we do have a fairly broad audience. And I want to make sure that folks understand the difference. Can you just dig into the difference a little bit between embedded analytics and embedded BI?
Sure. We've written some blog posts about this very topic over the years. Embedded BI, the way we've kind of defined it, really is taking your traditional BI players, without naming names. I'm sure everybody can come up with 3 or 4 right off the bat, and really taking a solution that was built for internal usage, business groups, data analysts, and trying to somehow force that in. So it kind of uses the BI term. Embedded, more often than not, it takes the form of just a static iframe. I mean, everyone uses the term embedded analytics, but you'd be, amazed at the differences. So embedded BI really is like kind of these legacy systems that are trying to shove it in there. So sometimes it's only iframes, right? Which means you're not getting into that granular widgets. The white labeling is sometimes really limited and very inconsistent. So in this whole part of building trust, like it's very obvious that it is not your software. And that really kind of flies in the face of, embedding something in your solution that's supposed to be a seamless part of your solution. And then it breaks down with multi-tenancy. The legacy BI systems just weren't built for multi-tenant out of the box. So a lot of times we get customers that went down that path. They really struggled with the development cost of making it ready. So embedded BI was really kind of taking your traditional business intelligence solutions and trying to offer them an embedded layer where, some people will make it work, don't get me wrong. But for the most part, we find anybody that's kind of gone down that path and really struggled with it, it usually falls into one of those buckets there. It's either the multi-tenancy gets them into trouble, the security model gets them into trouble, sending data to a third-party cloud sometimes becomes a showstopper. So that kind of class of solutions, which we'd call embedded BI, typically just falls down in an embedded analytics for SaaS application scenario.
And so we do want everybody to understand, and we would certainly encourage everybody watching this to go to the Qrvey.com site and see everything that they have to offer there. Lots of resources available. And Erin, I'm curious with regard to that. What did you? So you clearly went through a consideration cycle. You considered other solutions, and it sounds like you may even have been fairly far down with some of those solutions. How did that work for you? I mean, how did you, when you decided as a team you were going to look for a partner for your embedded analytics? Can you talk a little bit about that process and what, if anything, you needed to kind of recognize internally prior to being able to really engage in that ultimate buying decision?
Yes. Well, it was a big commitment for us. We were in the evaluation stage for 6 months. I had a full dev team dedicated to evaluating business intelligence vendors, which is expensive. But we really wanted to make sure that we were picking the right partner and a technology that would scale with us for the years to come. And the actual evaluation itself ended up looking like building some very experimental code and prototypes to make sure that this technology would fulfill all of our user requirements. So it was quite intense.
And Brian, is that what you see typically in these engagements that you're entering into?
It is, because the ones that go down that path, it's not only that they take it seriously, they have a better handle on, what the commitment is to really take this next leap forward. So yeah, we do see people doing that. I mean, when we go down that path, customers, we can really help them be successful. But that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, so I know you asked Erin, but I'm going to ask you the same question with regard to the build versus buy decision. Yeah. When you're talking to somebody and they, are like, oh, we can just do that ourselves, or they're not necessarily convinced. I mean, what are the triggers that you're kind of leveraging there?
Yeah, so usually the signs that you're kind of ready for this. So one, if you just have feature requests that are piling up, like customers are constantly asking for something custom, or they're really pushing on you for more downloads. Downloads is a good sign that, they're doing something custom. They're just not doing it in your system. So those are two things that product managers really can see, right? So those are good signs that you're just not, your product is falling down more than anything. Sometimes the cost of maintenance, you're spending just too much roadmap time. Some customers, development shops, they just spend too much time on the analytics, and where you build it up front, it may not look like super intensive to build static dashboards, but the cost over time of incremental improvements, it becomes a regular part of your roadmap. And when you're constantly dedicating time to this, at some point, hopefully you ask the question of, there's got to be a better way. That's what we see a lot of the greenfield. And it's common for startups. Startups, they get something up there really fast. It works for a little while, but at some point they're going to outgrow that. Sometimes, and hopefully customers don't leave them, but once in a while we do see churn issues. I mean, churn can show up. The quality of your dashboards can be a churn reason, and we've 100% seen it.
So let's take that one step further and talk a little bit about ROI. So how would somebody think about measuring ROI? What are maybe some of the common ways that people can think about measuring ROI?
Yeah. So people will look at, using this in a couple ways. But some customers will say, this is not a cost center, this is a revenue center. So in that particular case, ROI looks at, depending on how they want to monetize it. So some companies monetize this with either premium add-ons on enterprise licenses, right? So kind of annual add-ons to more expensive products. And that's a matter of how often are you selling them. Sometimes they will offer them as part of premium user tiers. So if you sell seats, then maybe you have multiple tiers. Sometimes your upper tiers will get access to some of those more customization features or the build your own dashboard features. So that's an easy way of monetizing it that way. If you're not monetizing it, it tends to show up in CSAT scores, so customer satisfaction. A lot of times you do legitimately get higher like NPS scores, if that's how you're measuring it. We've seen that show up there plenty of times. And those are more the customer facing sides. Internally, you're looking at, development performance, right? Are you dedicating less roadmap to it? Does that mean you're freeing it up, which is a little harder to measure because it's a bit of the opportunity cost type question there, right? Because if you're spending all this time on analytics, well, what aren't you doing? So if you're spending less time on this after you get that first implementation done and get it rolled out, what is the benefit and what's it freeing up for you to really focus on there as well? So typically ROI comes in one of those three buckets. Hopefully you see them, maybe all three, but those that monetize it, they're definitely able to go right to it. And we see this, pretty regularly. We have customers that have done it in the two ways I've mentioned. We have customers that have just used it as a justification for an annual price increase, just across the board, like everyone's getting it and it's part of a justification. And, the SaaS industry is in an interesting time right now. We went from that kind of interesting COVID boom to everyone's, looking for a little bit of extra revenue. So we definitely see companies looking to monetize this a little bit more than we had in previous years.
Yeah, Erin, any thoughts on the ROI question on your end?
Definitely a lot of what Brian said. There's some product metrics we're looking at, looking for decreased data exports, indicating that folks are able to achieve their goals in our system, and also looking to move upmarket with more executive personas using our product.
Yeah, great. The last question I have to ask, because you guys touched on it a little bit, but I mean, let's talk about AI at least a little bit. I know there's and this is probably a little outside the box because I'm sure you're both having lots of internal discussions about how to present this to clients and customers and how you're going to integrate it as well. But can you talk a little bit about what you see as the opportunity? I don't consider it a threat, but I'm curious what you guys see as opportunities around it.
My main goal is to make insights highly accessible to our users, So if there's a way for us to leverage artificial intelligence to make the insights more impactful or easier to find, I would be excited to explore those options.
I agree with you. I think the ease of finding the insights, trends, outliers that sometimes took a few extra steps, I think are some of the biggest opportunities for your average user. I mean, your advanced user, they've been dabbling in machine learning probably for a while, but it's the average user that's going to get the biggest benefit from this. So whether that's asking questions in natural language queries or simply feeding it some information and it just can find the trends, in a matter of a few seconds. So it's an exciting time for sure. And you're right. It's not a threat. It's an opportunity.
Absolutely. And insights, by the way, is one of our favorite words. So we'll end with that. This has been tremendously informative. Appreciate the time. Appreciate you, Erin, coming along. Brian, thanks very much. And obviously, best of luck with Qrvey and everything you have coming up in the next year.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Another solution in our spotlight. We want to thank Brian and Erin Peck for that fine presentation, and we appreciate your participation as well. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.